I need the scoop.
A mother abandons her special needs child in the middle of the night, leaving a family in crisis. I'm diving into a Reddit story that shocked thousands, as one sister's refusal to babysit unleashed a devastating chain of events. Get ready for a family drama where mental health stigma, parental abandonment, and misplaced blame collide in ways that will leave you questioning what we truly owe to those we call family.
I'm a 23-year-old child-free woman, and my sister is 30 with a 4-year-old son. She's a single mom, and her ex-husband is not in the picture and has no contact with her or the kid. I'm gonna get straight to the point. That kid is a nightmare to be around. It's not his fault, it's my sister's fault. He very clearly has behavioral and mental health disorders, even at his young age. However, my sister is very ableist and refuses to accept that her son has problems. The kid screams bloody murder whenever something doesn't slightly go his way, screams and cries when he's overwhelmed, has meltdowns to certain sounds and textures. Like I said, I don't blame the kid for these issues, but my sister refusing to get him treatment or help makes the kid a nightmare to be around. So, as a result, I don't babysit the kid when my sister asks, or more like demands, I do so. This causes a lot of fights between us and our family. I have a friend, a 23-year-old man, who's married to a wonderful lady aged 22, and they have a baby boy together who just turned 1. Yes, they got married and had him young, but it's not my place to judge them. This past weekend they asked me to babysit for them, and I agreed for a few reasons. Their kid is calm, well-behaved, and generally good to be around. I love babysitting him. Also, they asked me nicely and understood that I might say no because I'm child-free. They were polite about their request. A thing about me is that if you ask me to do something politely, even if it's something I wouldn't usually agree to, I'd probably do it because you were nice and polite. So, for these reasons, I happily agreed to babysit the boy. My sister also asked me to babysit her son that day so she could have a day to herself, and I refused and told her I was already babysitting for my friends. She was furious, to say the least. She said a few comments about how I was an awful person and not a good sister, but I thought she dropped it after that. This past weekend, while I was watching the baby, my sister started banging on my door. I looked through the window and saw that she had her kid and a care bag with her, and I knew she was trying to drop him off and make me babysit. She was banging on the door, yelling at me and calling me heartless and a baby hater, which was ironic since I was holding a baby, and that I better open up and do my sisterly duties. I put the baby in a different room to keep him from getting scared by the noise and told my sister through the window to leave, or I would call the cops. She started cursing for a solid 5 minutes before she finally left. I had the whole thing on my doorbell camera and sent it to the family group chat. Surprisingly, my whole family is on my sister's side. She keeps arguing with me about how I'd rather babysit a kid not even related to me over my nephew. I reminded her that her kid is a nightmare to be around, but she keeps saying that for family, you help out. My sister has been cold since and keeps sending me text messages to provoke me into arguing with her more. She's also started saying some pretty ableist and nasty things towards my friend's wife. My friend's wife is on the spectrum and has BPD, and my sister keeps saying that she should have been sterilized and never should have passed her issues to her kid. By the way, her kid has shown none of the signs that autistic infants usually show, so I don't know what my sister is talking about. I will admit that I do feel a bit guilty because I never considered babysitting my nephew, but I jumped at the opportunity to babysit my friend's kid. My sister, dad who's 66, mom who's 64, and brother who's 33 are all calling me an awful person and saying that I'm just using the child-free label to avoid family responsibility. My brother has a wife and kids, so my family claims he can't babysit, and my parents say they're too old to do so. Because I'm the youngest and don't have kids, they keep saying I'm the perfect person to babysit because I have nothing to do, not even taking into consideration that I have a job and friends of my own. My brother also deep down knows the kid is a nightmare, even as much as he tries to ignore it along with my sister and parents. This issue already came up with school. My nephew is close to turning 5, and last school year he was supposed to be in preschool. He was enrolled, and of course the teachers noticed his issues right away and tried to convince my sister to sign him up for the special education program in the preschool and for behavioral therapy. She outright refused, went off on them, and pulled her kid from the program. He's going to start kindergarten in the fall, and my sister said if they insult her son, she'll pull him out and homeschool him. My family knows the child is difficult to handle. They keep trying to pretend he's not and ignore the issue, but they know. They don't want to upset my sister by mentioning it, as she goes nuclear with insults and fights whenever someone brings it up. I love my family, I love my nephew, and I love my sister, but it is so wrong to just ignore the issues he has. He needs help. There is something wrong, and I'm not saying that to be mean or cruel or ableist in any form, but it's the truth. My sister doesn't want him to be diagnosed with anything. She has this belief that kids are overdiagnosed as a way for pharmaceutical companies and hospitals to get more money out of parents and insurance companies. And I agree to an extent that we do have an issue of over-medicalization in our country, and that we tend to prescribe medication rather than find a way to actually resolve the problem. However, that doesn't mean I think medication isn't the solution in some cases. I don't know what would help my nephew, but I'm pretty sure that doing nothing is worse for him. I need advice on how to get my family to see my perspective on this. How can I explain to them that the issue isn't the idea of babysitting, but it's the behavior of the kid?
The community overwhelmingly supported the original poster, recognizing her sister's concerning behavior as a red flag for deeper issues. Tensions between the sisters escalated rapidly, with the doorbell camera capturing increasingly desperate and erratic confrontations. Just days after the initial post, the situation would take a devastating turn that nobody could have anticipated.
So, has hit the fan. My original post was about 3 days ago, and ever since then, my sister's behavior escalated. I tried to talk to her about getting help for my nephew, and she kept screaming at me every time I brought it up. She said a lot of derogatory terms towards people with mental illnesses and mental disabilities, terms I won't repeat here. That wasn't the only escalation. She was at my door several times a day starting 2 days ago, banging on my door, screaming, crying, cursing, the works. She brought my nephew each time, and he always looked so confused and defeated. He was too tired to react or melt down like he normally does around loud noises, and it broke my heart to see that on my doorbell camera. I wasn't at my house. I was crashing with my friend and his wife. I took the advice to put some physical distance between me and my sister. They said I was free to stay as long as I wanted, as long as I helped out with some house chores and childcare while I stayed, which I thought was more than fair. So I'm staying in their guest room currently. I'm still with them, even though my sister isn't much of a problem anymore. Many will be glad to know that my sister won't have parental rights over my nephew soon. She dropped him off at a safe haven site in the middle of the night. Totally a fun phone call to wake up to at 2 a.m. And my nephew is currently with my parents. Social services placed him with my parents, and he's set to have mandatory therapy. In my state, if a child is abandoned in any way, safe haven or not, a physical and mental health examination is done. Other than being a little bit underweight, my nephew was physically healthy. He wasn't being physically abused like a few people were worried, but it was obvious he needed mental health support, so he'll be starting therapy sessions soon, as mandated by a caseworker. We are not looking for my sister. After she dropped her son off, she left. She had quit her job a few weeks back, sold her car and even her house a few weeks ago, and had been renting a place, so this was planned. In my personal opinion, she planned to abandon her son the day I was babysitting my friend's baby, which is why she had such a nuclear reaction. She did leave a note, saying she can't do it anymore. She met someone, and that she doesn't want to be a mom to my nephew anymore. In her note, she said she deserves a normal kid, and not a burden like my nephew. I seriously hope that my sister doesn't have any more kids with this mystery person she's referencing, but it seems like she's running off to start a new life and family. She still has 30 days to reclaim rights over my nephew, but it doesn't look like she'll do that. Time will tell. Like I said, I'm still with my friends because I was worried my sister would do something. My parents and brother have also been blowing up my phone and coming to my house, switching between apologies and blaming me for this. They think that maybe if I had babysat that day, she wouldn't have done this, but I think she wanted me to babysit so she could do this. I'm not mad at them for blaming me. I understand that my sister is still their family, and they're rightfully in shock and want someone to blame. They're human, and I know humans can be cruel sometimes while going through shock and grief. I don't know the full details of the legal situation since I'm not directly involved in the case. When I say, we are not looking for her, I mean me and my family. Police could be looking for her, but I'm out of the loop on this whole case. So, that's life right now. I'm currently sitting on the couch with my friend's baby while my friend is at work and his wife does a quick grocery run. She was going to take the baby, but I insisted on watching him so she didn't have to hassle with the car seat in the very stormy weather we have in our area right now. There's still a lot of unknown stuff regarding my sister and nephew, but for now, this is the update. My friend's wife is telling me I should relax and just not think about anything relating to this until I'm more level-headed, but I don't think that's possible.
Readers expressed relief that the nephew would finally receive the professional help he needed, though many worried about the long-term emotional impact of his mother's abandonment. The family dynamics shifted dramatically as the original poster discovered a stark contrast between her own family's blame-centered approach and her friend's healthy communication style. 2 weeks after the abandonment, the family's healing process would reveal just how deeply entrenched their dysfunctional patterns truly were.
My sister abandoned her 5-year-old son a little less than 2 weeks ago and fled. Police are looking for her, but she hasn't been found yet. My nephew is with my parents and is in therapy. When that first happened, my parents were quick to blame me because I had refused to babysit the kid in the past, and the weekend before my sister ultimately abandoned him. They think, had I babysat him that day, she wouldn't have fled. I've been staying with my friends since then, and oh my god, it's so chill here. They're young parents with a baby, and yet it's peaceful. Everyone is happy. They talk things out when there are issues. They work together. I've met both parents of my friends, and they're nice and polite. Obviously, I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but I have seen some bickering, and they always find a way to resolve it. Growing up, my parents always argued a lot. My siblings were always loud and cruel to each other at times, and there always had to be someone to blame. If you were the person who was blamed, you were insulted and shunned for a while, then they would apologize. You were always expected to forgive and forget. My parents are trying to apologize to me about their blowout at me regarding my sister, and I can understand their initial feelings. I'm willing to forgive, but I know my family will also expect me to forget. But I can't forget. I don't think I can forget this whole situation. So I'm wondering if I would be wrong if I chose to forgive them, but refuse to forget this whole thing.
The community strongly advised the original poster to maintain firm boundaries with her family, recognizing the toxic cycle of blame that continued even after the initial crisis. 8 months passed, with the original poster gradually distancing herself from her family's unhealthy dynamics while strengthening her bond with her friends. When her sister finally resurfaced, it would trigger one final confrontation that would test everyone's limits.
I'm about done with this whole situation and ready to just completely cut contact with my family after this whole mess. My sister got arrested a few months ago on several charges, including child endangerment, abandonment, and drug charges. She's been court-ordered to go to an inpatient rehab, but our state doesn't pay for it, which means that she has to pay for it. She does not have a job and has little to no savings after burning through them on some drug bender. I work remotely and have a pretty decent income for my field and area. My parents are saying that I need to pitch in and help pay for the rehab because they and my brother and his wife are also paying a portion. If I contribute, then they won't need to pay as much because it will be split 5 ways instead of 4. Here's where I think I am definitely in the wrong. I asked my parents for the exact amount they want me to contribute. It was a fairly decent amount. I could afford it, but I was feeling petty after everything with my sister. My best friend recently had her second baby, which was wonderful news, and I decided to take the exact amount my parents requested from me and spent it on getting my friend some extra baby supplies like toys, decorations, clothes, and a few early Mother's Day gifts. When my mom texted me and asked for the money, I sent a picture of my shopping spree for my friend and said I had already spent the money on a proper mom. She called me inconsiderate and said I could have just said no and not given them hope I would pay. I told them I had the money initially. Then, after they got their hopes up, I said I didn't have it anymore because I spent it on someone else. I'm just so fed up with them trying to get me to cover my sister's irresponsible behavior.
Sometimes the most painful family lessons come when we see the contrast between toxic patterns and healthy relationships. Subscribe to stay updated on this ongoing family saga as the legal consequences continue to unfold. Share your thoughts on family obligations and boundaries in the comments below, and explore our other videos about navigating difficult family dynamics when mental health issues are stigmatized rather than addressed.